All right, moving on. U.S. President Donald Trump's aggressive tariff policies have ignited trade wars on multiple fronts, with Canada, Mexico and China all part of the mix. And this conflict is not being fought with missiles or soldiers, but with tariffs and retaliatory measures that could perhaps ripple global trade. The question now is, how hard will America's new enemies punch back? Have the friends turned frenemies? And will brinkmanship cost Trump? Let's break this down for you in the next few minutes. Well, Trump's decision to slap a 25% tariff on nearly all Canadian imports has triggered a fierce backlash from Ottawa. In the latest, Canada's Ontario banned U.S. firms from government contracts in a move that will reportedly scrap $100 million deal with Elon Musk's Starlink. Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, said that the ban would persist unless the Trump administration lifts tariffs on Canada. And Canada is not just voicing its discontent. It is reportedly taking legal action as well, accusing the U.S. of violating global trade agreements. And Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is striking Trump back with equal force, imposing a tit-for-tat 25% tariffs on 155 billion Canadian dollars, or approximately $107 billion worth of American goods. Yes, the amount is $107 billion. And these are not just symbolic gestures. Canada's retaliatory tariffs target over 1,200 American goods, spanning from household appliances to cosmetics and even everyday goods such as orange juice, peanut butter, wine, beer, coffee and footwear. And the tariffs, the imposition of tariffs starts tomorrow. These countermeasures take effect reportedly directly hitting about 17% of all U.S. exports to Canada. But Canada is not stopping just there. According to an official statement by the Canadian government, a second wave of tariff is already in the works, set to be unveiled in just 3 weeks. This new list will hit American cars, trucks, electric vehicles, steel, fruits, vegetables, and even aerospace goods. Collectively, all these goods represent 125 billion Canadian dollars, or at least 85 billion Canadian dollars. According to Reuters, a senior Canadian government official labeled Trump's tariffs as, and I'm quoting here, illegal and a blatant breach of both the Free Trade Agreement and World Trade Organization rules, adding that Canada plans to challenge these tariffs through every available legal channel. And if new legal avenues emerge, they are ready to explore those too. Meanwhile, at a press conference, Trudeau warned that these U.S. tariffs will not just hurt Canada, they will in fact backfire, causing real economic pain for American families. Trump said he had spoken to Trudeau on Monday about the tariffs, adding that they would talk again later in the day, adding that he is also set to hold talks with Mexico to discuss this very issue. But Canada is not fighting this battle alone. To its south, Mexico is in a similar predicament. Like Canada, U.S. has also imposed a blanket 25% tariff on all Mexican imports. And Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, too, has slapped retaliatory tariffs on American goods. She called out the Trump administration, warning that these tariffs will hit Americans where it hurts the most, and that is their wallets.
This measure of 25% tariffs has effects for both countries, but it has very serious effects for the economy of the United States, as it is going to greatly increase the costs of all products that are exported from Mexico to the United States. It's going to have 25% more cost.
Well, while she emphasized Mexico's preference for dialogue over confrontation, her message was clear that Mexico has the resolve and the courage to stand its ground.
I told him, Mr. President, instead of fighting with tariffs, let's dialogue. This is how people understand each other. We have to communicate, but not in this way. This is the way in which we have responded, and it is very important.
Well, across the Pacific, China is also gearing up for trade battle. Beijing has announced plans to challenge 10% U.S. tariffs on goods from China through the World Trade Organization. As per reports, China's Ministry of Commerce accused the United States of violating WTO rules, urging Washington to abandon its confrontational stance and warning that escalating these trade tensions will have no winners, only losers on both the sides. And China is not just filing legal complaints. They have reportedly said that they will, and I'm quoting here, take required countermeasures against the U.S., perhaps signaling that more economic retaliation is on the horizon. So what are the economic consequences of this global trade war? Experts warn that these tariffs could trigger significant economic disruptions in the U.S. Inflation, a persistent concern for American voters, could surge. Well, according to predictions from Yale University, the average U.S. household could lose more than $1,100 annually, and that is due to these new import taxes. That translates to higher prices for groceries, gasoline, housing and automobiles. Everyday Americans will feel the pinch in their wallets, from the gas pump to the grocery aisle. But the Trump administration is not blind to the risks. In fact, the decision to impose a lower tariff that's 10% instead of 25% on Canadian energy imports was reportedly a strategic move, and that is to avoid skyrocketing fuel and utility costs that could cripple American households and businesses alike. And yet, despite multiple reports that these tariffs may hurt American consumers as much as, if not more, than Canada, Mexico and China, Trump remains firm on his stance. In a post on his Truth Social platform, he said, and I'm quoting here, "This will be the golden age of America. Will there be some pain? Yes, maybe, and maybe not. We will make America great again, and it will be worth the price that must be paid." So where does this leave the U.S.? Well, Trump's tariff war has created new enemies in Canada, Mexico and China. And these are not minor players. They are America's largest trading partners, countries whose economic ties with the U.S. run deep. Combined, Mexico, China and Canada account for more than a third of the goods brought into the United States, accounting for more than $1 trillion in goods a year. The question is not just how hard these countries will punch U.S. back. It's rather how long America can withstand the blows. The question remains that if Trump will blink. The battle lines are drawn. West Asia now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will soon meet U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington, D.C., and that's on the 4th of February. This, by the way, is Netanyahu's first foreign visit after facing an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court, or the ICC, on November 21st, 2024. The meeting between the two leaders is crucial as it is set to take place amid a 6-week ceasefire that has brought a temporary pause to 15 months of fighting in Gaza, and that's between Israel and Hamas. But Israeli forces, they continue its operations in the West Bank. What will the Trump-Netanyahu meeting have in store for the future of West Bank and Gaza? Our next report telling you more.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is in Washington. He will be meeting US President Trump. Netanyahu is the first foreign leader visiting the US since Trump's inauguration last month. Meanwhile, this is what is happening in the West Bank. The IDF claims that 35 gunmen were killed during operations in Jenin, Tulkarem and the Tamun area, while 15 others were killed in drone strikes. The Israeli military blew up several buildings in a series of simultaneous explosions. The Palestinian state news agency says Israeli strikes have leveled around 20 buildings in the Jenin refugee camp. The horror doesn't end there. The IDF admitted that it had also mistakenly targeted civilians, including a toddler. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, at least 70 people have been killed in the West Bank just in 2025. Just for context, the occupied West Bank has seen a surge in violence since the start of Israel's war on Gaza in October 2023, with Israel launching near-daily military arrest raids. And despite the ceasefire being in place, the violence against the Palestinians in Gaza continues to surge. A move that will have far-reaching implications as far as the peace deal with Hamas is concerned, something which is also slated to be a part of discussions between Trump and Netanyahu during their meetings.
Netanyahu's visit to Trump is anticipated to reflect his future plans to forcibly displace the Palestinian people and redraw the Middle East. I sincerely hope this plan does not succeed.
In a statement released ahead of his departure, Netanyahu said that his discussions with Trump would border on a range of issues, including the release of all the hostages as well as contention with Iran. Netanyahu also said the meeting is a testimony to the strength of the Israeli-American alliance.
The decisions we made in the war have already changed the face of the Middle East. Our decisions and the courage of our soldiers have redrawn the map. But I believe that working closely with President Trump, we can redraw it even further and for the better.
The Israeli premier's visit comes as the US continues to put pressure on Israel and Hamas to continue with the ceasefire that had paused a devastating 15-month war in Gaza, especially as Trump has made it crystal clear that he wants an end to the wars in West Asia that has also recently spread to Lebanon. As for Netanyahu, this is also a golden chance to strengthen ties with Washington after facing tensions with the previous Biden administration. However, here's the catch. Netanyahu's peace promises might be looking to strengthen the case for a more permanent end to Israel's war on Gaza. The recent attacks in the West Bank paint another picture altogether. And especially now with the Hamas threatening not to free hostages in the second phase unless the Israeli forces withdraw fully and the war comes to a complete end. The recent attacks seem to be pushing the prospect of peace in the conflict-torn areas even further away. And now, after his meeting with Trump, will Netanyahu change his stance for good and rechart his West Asia policy? We'll have to wait and see.
Financial markets woke up to the reality of trade wars on Monday, with a sell-off extending across asset classes following US President Donald Trump making good on his promise to slap tariffs on imports from China, Mexico and Canada. The dollar surged to the highest since November 2022, while stock markets and other currencies tumbled. In reaction to the punitive actions implemented against some of US's most important trading partners, stock futures in Europe and the United States fell. An index of shares in the Asia-Pacific region also fell, the most in over 6 months. Yields on US Treasuries rose as a result of concerns that the move is likely to be inflationary. The sell-off spread across asset classes. Trump's announcement that taxes on EU imports will definitely happen. It also exacerbated the euro's slide. Traders are on alert for big swings in assets that are considered at the front lines of any trade war. Traders also cut their holdings in some asset tokens that had benefited from Trump's pro-crypto remarks.